This is a photograph of fenugreek seeds. And what do we have here also? Ooh, these are the leaves, fenugreek leaves. We are in for quite a treat today here on the Elegantly Raw Show. Welcome. Hi, welcome to the Elegantly Raw Show. I am so happy to have you here today because we are doing something which I've always wanted to do, was to bring the knowledge of fenugreek and all of its magical properties to as many people as possible. So I trust that you are here enjoying what will be for you a whole new realm of healing and also of manifestations of all of your possibilities by going to the fenugreek plant, by looking at this fenugreek plant and its seeds. And for that, I would like to really welcome and thank Shantree of the Living Center in Ontario, Canada. And please welcome Shantree. Please unmute yourself. And I would love for you to come on in and show us all of your magic and everything that you're doing here today.
Hello. Nice to be back, Dorota. Thank you for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Welcome back.
Yeah. So, I'm here just outside London, Ontario, and it's just a gorgeous, gorgeous spring day. And things are just bursting green. Everything's growing. And I just finished, I did a 4-week series on sprouting. And then after the sprouting series, I did 4 weeks on microgreens. So it's really interesting or wonderful to share this with you because what I'm going to share right now is how to go from a seed to a sprout to also the microgreens and to actually make a drink for you. And the reason I love this plant so much is it brings in both of my professions together, both as a nutritionist as well as a herbalist. So what I like to do is just show you what these 4 plants at this stage look like. So the first one I'm going to show you, I'm just going to bend so you can see this. So the first one I have here is the fenugreek seeds when they're still dormant. And these seeds have a really, really ancient history of how they have been used through the centuries, through the Middle East, through India, Pakistan, and numerous parts of the world. But what makes them really unique is that the seed is also very aromatic. So that's what that seed looks like in its dry form. And I learned this recipe when I was first learning and apprenticing with somebody to become a herbalist. So that's the seed. And this is the sprout, the fenugreek seeds that have sprouted for about 4 days. So this stage of sprout is actually a little bit too long for what we're going to make. The stage we want is the root of the seed to be roughly the length of the seed itself. So as you can see, these roots here are more than that. They're probably double to 3 times the length. So that's at that stage. Before I get into showing you actually maybe the other ones, I would like to show you also what the greens look like. So I don't have very many left in the pot because a lot of them have been used during the sprouting class, but you can sort of see what they look like. Also the picture that Dorrit had as well. So you can see what they look like as they look very much like a pea leaves because they're in the legume family, which means they're high in nitrogen, which means they're also very high in protein. And they're very, really tasty. And a lot of people don't actually sprout the seeds to become a microgreen, but there's something pretty special about them because they get the chlorophyll. So,
Shantree, would you bring that a little back again and to the screen and bring it a little bit more to your right so they see the whole pot? Thank you. Beautiful. Yeah. Thank you for that shot.
Yeah. Sure. So like I said, this pot was full of microgreens and they were just harvested in the last week or two. And like I was saying, you can see how the leaves have that three leaves per part there, very, very much like a clover or alfalfa or any plant that you might grow, like a legume or a bean. So anyway, just want to show that to you. But what makes this plant really unique is that it has something in it called saponins. Actually, what's unique is well, saponins are used a lot in licorice. It's if anyone's taking things for the hormones or for the adrenal glands, they're helping the body to support themselves for their immune system, all the different endocrine systems. And there's not very many plants that have saponins in it. That's why I mentioned licorice, the licorice root. If you took a licorice root and you took the root and you blended it, it would get very bubbly, or I think that's the best way of describing that, or foamy. But what happens is with saponins, that foam will stay there for a long, long, long time. So it's very different than if you blend up to make a nut or seed milk. You blend it up, it's bubbly, but then the bubbles leave within a few minutes. With this type of thing, when you blend it, the saponins that are there will keep the shape or keep the bubble formation for a very, very, very long time, like for hours and hours. But the other part that has besides saponins is lecithin. And lecithin breaks up fats. It helps to break up things, and it's really good for the brain, for the head. It really helps to support memory, so you prevent memory loss. It has so many different nutrients, but when you put these two things together, a saponin and the lecithin, it forms such a unique texture to what we're going to be making. So I've used it a lot in herbalism for the lungs, for the throat, helping to heal tissue, inflammation, antispasmodic. It's used as a tonic, so it actually helps us tonify and make the body healthier and stronger. It's also used a lot for hypotension for people. But the unique thing is also for women, it's also used as a galactagogue and a menagogue, so it works a lot as a hormonal support. As I mentioned, it works on the adrenal glands and the whole endocrine system. But the main thing it's really used for a lot is diabetes. That's what's really known for. But like I said, for anyone who wants to lose weight or lose excess accumulation from an Ayurvedic perspective, it helps to lose the kapha, excess stagnation. So during right now, whoever's listening to this, if you're in the Northern Hemisphere, you know that warmer weather's coming, spring is in the air. So to do some kind of spring cleansing, this is a really great herb. But also what makes this plant unique, as I mentioned with the seeds, is that they are aromatic. And a lot of seeds are not aromatic. When you think of sesame seeds, sunflower seeds, pumpkin seeds, it goes on and on. A lot of the ones don't. So it actually is an aromatic plant that can be used for cooking or making food preparation, but it also has this amazing medicinal value. So it's one plant that I always think it's hard to say. Is on the nutritional side, is on the herbal side, because the plant does so much therapeutically. So it really helps to ease and get rid of constipation. So what I want to do is,
Shantree, can we go back to what you were showing us? And do you mind opening it up and showing it to people? Just opening it up so they can see what's in there. Yes, please. So they have an idea what it looks like. Thank you. Lovely. And go ahead, please.
Yeah. So one of the things that I didn't mention is that these seeds are really, really, really hard. For me to take one of these seeds and to bite it and to chew it, it's almost like you're chewing gravel. They're so hard. But what happens is once you take it and you soak it for those 6 hours, as a lot of the seeds of this size, once you do it for those 6 or 7 hours, it starts to soften. And as it softens and then starts to grow and turn into this stage, maybe I'll do the same thing, open up the jar so you folks can see this. So these seeds, let me just put it, there we go. Have been sprouting, like I said, 3 or 4 days. So these ones here could go into a salad. They're fantastic in a salad. They have quite a nice aromatic taste to them. They're very flavorful. They're delicious. There's a lot of great benefits from it. But what we want to do for this recipe is to have the seed soaked for those 6 hours and then to sprout. So somewhere between 24 to 48 hours, so 1 to 2 days. And unfortunately, I don't have any to show you at that stage, but you just know it's half the length of this, because the ones I used by mistake, I put them in the blender. I've actually made the recipe here, so I'm going to show you what it looks like in the finished, but it was half the stage. Because what happens is when you do it,
can you take out a few of those that are sprouted on your hand and just show it so that people can see what it looks like there? Thanks.
Yeah, that's a good idea. So you can see how long those little tails are. Those tails are fantastic, and you can eat the whole thing. And the seed is not so hard, and it doesn't have that gravel texture to it, so it's much softer. So it's delicious this way. So these ones are probably about 3, maybe close to 4 days old. But the ones that I'm going to make you for the recipe, like I said, that little tiny white tail is the length of the kernel, the seed.
Shantree, we have a question. Shantree, we have a question.
Yes.
Yannick Solar is asking, what is the daily recommended quantity of the 4-day fenugreek sprouts?
How much a person can consume?
What is the daily recommended quantity? What is the daily recommended quantity of the 4-day fenugreek sprouts? Yannick Solar, if you can please answer Sanji's question. We need more specifically to know exactly what you mean by that.
So if they're asking how much to consume in 1 day, so something like this, for Lorraine and myself, this jar would probably last us, if we're going to consume this every day, this probably would last us almost a week. So what I would recommend as a dosage for eating would probably be a small handful per person. Well, actually, you could probably have 2 handfuls, one for lunch, one for dinner, mixed in with all your other sprouts, with all your other salad. Because one is the taste of it, because a lot of times it takes a while for people to get used to the flavor of it, because it's so aromatic and it has a heat to it, but also has a bitterness to it. And it's a acquired taste of what it's like. Did you get an answer there? From
yes. So we had some clarification on what is the best dosage daily, and can one eat too much?
Yes. So there is what starts to happen. So I mentioned the saponins and I mentioned the lecithin. The other part is this aromatic part in the herb. It moves through the body real quickly. So in other words, it gets into your bloodstream, it gets into your circulation. It really helps digestion a lot, but also gets to the extremities. So one of the things that starts to happen is your skin or your body odor will change. It will actually begin to smell very like fenugreek. And you might have family members or coworkers that might start saying your scent is getting a little strong. So if you've ever been to an Indian shop and you walk into an Indian store where there's a lot of spices that are being sold there, a lot of times the smell that comes through, the aroma in that store, it is Indian spices, but a lot of times it's the fenugreek, because the fenugreek is so aromatic. So in the sense of the dosage, I would do it according to a person's how their body feels, but also once it starts coming through your skin a lot, you might want to reduce how much you are consuming, because if it's coming through the skin, that means it's working very well medicinally. That means it's getting to where it needs to go. And there is a few side effects, but the amount of side effects that you would have to consume like a whole jar like this every day, or maybe even half a jar, a little bit more than half a jar, before I would really get concerned, because there is so much great benefit for it. And it really is great for this time of year, like going from fall, winter, and early spring, also because of COVID, supporting the respiratory system, supporting the throat, supporting coughs, colds. So there's a lot of great benefits during that half, especially here in Canada, where people live further north, of how much to consume. So hopefully that answers the question.
So, Shantree,
Okay.
also, um, we're being asked here, are there any side effects?
Um, yeah, I'm going to get to that right here, just to answer your question. So basically, one of them is if a person consumes too much, it does a little bit of the reverse. You end up having gas. It ends up lowering your blood sugar, maybe a little bit too much. You might start having diarrhea coming through, wheezing. Like I said, the unusual body odor is the main one. And the odd person might have allergic reaction to it. But like I said, these are really, really, really rare. And it becomes even more rare if you're having it as sprouts. If you're eating it in a hard form and you're having this as a tea or you're consuming this as a food, it's much, much more concentrated. So in other words, this jar here, this is probably only this amount of seeds. So it's probably about 2 tablespoons max. So the amount that I'm going to make right now is a blender full. And the blender full was only about a quarter of this jar. Once again, a quarter of the jar, but the roots were only the length of the seed. Okay.
Shantree, can you show people the seed? Take it out of the jar, please, and show it to them in your hand so they have an idea. Thank you.
Are you talking about the sprout?
No, the seed
This?
itself. No, the seed before it sprouted. The one that they used to make tea,
Yep.
and the one that sprouted, oh, to be sprouted, yes.
So there's the seed.
Yeah, just keep your hand steady for a moment, please, so that the camera can, yes, thank you.
So these seeds are really, really tiny. They're hard. There's a very strong aroma right now, even in my hands from opening the jar, compared to, I'm going to put them right next to each other, compared to the little tiny roots there. Okay.
And that's
and
after
these
it's been
here
sprouted.
are really delicious. So the ones I'm eating right now, the ones you see in my hand, are about 3 days old, maybe 4. Okay, but I've had them in the fridge now for about 4 or 5 days, and they keep in the fridge very well. But they continue to grow in the fridge, but ever so slowly. So the ones I used were half the length. So what I'm going to do is get into the recipe now. This is one of the most fascinating seeds that I've ever come across in my whole entire life. And the other one is that this recipe that I'm going to share with you is called Fenugreek fluff. And I learned this before I started the center. So this was back in the late 1970s, 78, 79. And I've actually typed in to see if any of my colleagues that were studying with me, because I was apprenticing with a herbalist, I'm curious to know if anyone actually has put this recipe out online yet, and I still have not seen it. So here's the recipe. 2 to 4 teaspoons of seeds. So in other words, these seeds here, they're dormant, that have been soaked and sprouted for 1 day, so 24, maybe 48 hours, to 1 to 2 cups of water. And what you do is you blend it. And what happens is when you blend it, it gets very thick. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to shake this, and I'm going to pour it into a jar. So you can see how thick it is. So here's my jar. I'm going to pour. So you can sort of see how thick that is. That's the first blending. However, to make the fenugreek fluff, this here is now called stock. You wouldn't drink this because it's way too, it's really, really thick. So what happens is every time you blend it and you put it in the fridge, it gets thicker. So now, here's one. So this is blended now twice. And it's blended twice. So you can see there's actually double. So basically it doubled. It went from here, the first blending. After I blend it once, I put it in the fridge for like 6, 7, 8 hours to get cold. But when I want to take it out to blend it again, it has thickened. So now I'm going to try pouring this. So you get the idea of how thick it is. So now, from those 2 to 4 teaspoons of seeds, I have a whole jar. Oops. Plus this one. And I have a whole blender full. So let's leave the blender full aside. So what this is here is the stock. Hopefully everyone's following that. So what I just made right now is the stock. This would not be used. So it's been blended twice already. And you saw it got thicker. So it got thicker. So the first one was, I could still pour it. I put it in the fridge. 6 to 8 hours later, I took it out. I blended it, but I couldn't blend it because it's way too thick. So what I did is I add more water. So this here is now stock. So what I'm going to do now is take a little bit of the stock. Depends how thick you want it to be. And the reason it's so thick is because it's so much bubbles in it, because of, once again, the saponins and the lecithin in there is creating this. So now what I'm going to do is take some of this. So let's say I take about I'm going to take this amount, 2 cups, right? I'm going to pour that into a blender with water, at least double, 3 times the amount of water. But now what I'm going to do is I want to add some flavor to it to make it really, really delicious. So what you can put in there is blueberries, raspberries, a banana, if you want a little bit of carob, vanilla. So in other words, whatever kind of milkshake you like, you can add those flavors to it. If you want a little bit of sweetener, you can add a little bit of sweetener. So the one we've made today is made out of blueberries, raspberries, a little bit of pineapple, and a little bit, so blueberries, raspberries, banana, and pineapple. So 4 fruits. That is the only sweetener that's in there. And water. And the fenugreek seeds, that's it.
Shantree,
So
can you show the
amount?
Shantree, can you show the amount of the fluff you put in the blender along with the fruits, please?
This amount.
And
Okay.
what size is that? What size is that, please?
What is that? Is it 2 cups? I think it's 2 cups. It's 2 cups, yeah. Anyways, the blender is, how much does the blender have? Blender is 4 cups. So it was 2 cups. So 2 cups of this. I'm going to just blend this for a minute. So give me a second.
We'll just bring this up. This is what we started out with.
Okay. So this amount of stock creates this much. So it's 4 cups. It's a little bit more than 4 cups because it's really, really foamy. It's actually probably like 6 cups in here. But what I want to do now is pour it into another cup so you can actually see the consistency of it. Let's see, so I can do it this way. I'm not sure if you can see all the bubbles. But see those bubbles that are there? Those bubbles will stay there for a long, long time. I could leave this for an hour to come back. It will still be foamy or frothy, bubbly like this. So in other words, this amount here, those 2 to 4 teaspoons will create about 4 blenderfuls. You all get this? 2 to 4 teaspoons is giving you 4 blenderfuls of fluff. Because this here is the stock. So this is not fluff. This is the stock. Okay, this is too concentrated. So think of the stock as your concentrate. And then what you do is you take some of your concentrate like this. You can either dilute it by half or 3 times. So your 2 cups could make 6 cups, or if you want thicker and more, I don't know, more substance to it, then you can have 2 cups to 2 cups. So this one actually ends up being 1 to 3. So 2 cups of stock to 4 more cups of water. But I actually want to take this recipe to a whole nother level. I just want to take a sip first.
So while you're
So to
sipping
me,
it, let me just say while you're sipping it, that Diamond Darcy Carrington says fenugreek is also great for hair growth. Yes, correct. And for regeneration. What an amazing seed.
yes, it's very regenerative. And it has done miracles for a lot of people. I wish I had more time just to go into a lot of the medical part of it and the nutritional part of it and all the aspects that are there. But I've had people get a lot of energy from this because one of the other things it has iron. And there's a person, so I have to share a little story here. So about 27 years ago, I knew this woman who got really hooked on fenugreek. She just loved it. And she'd make a whole blender full and she would drink this. And she was a runner. So she'd run, and she ran a lot, not just a mile or two, but she ran a lot. But she'd drink that blender full and it was like an energy drink. And this is all before the days of smoothies. And she would make it. It gave her so much energy. And she'd run to work, she'd go to work. But the side effect was from her coworkers were saying, your body odor is starting to get a little too strong. Because if you are running, you're also sweating. And this, in other words, that scent of the fenugreek was coming through her skin even more so compared to somebody who wasn't a runner or who didn't perspire as much. But the main thing that she said is just the amount of energy and vitality she felt from it. It really gave her that surge. And I think it's partly because of the iron content there, but also because it's aromatic, and the aromatic parts support everything else to work more efficiently. So if you want to put this with other herbs or even make this into a salad dressing to have it on there, what happens is your salad then, you can absorb your salad more, because the more aromatics you have coming into your body, the more you're absorbing whatever you're having the fenugreek fluff with. So right now, the fenugreek here is helping me absorb my blueberries, my raspberries, my banana, and my pineapple here. So now I want to do something really neat. So this was a recipe that was taught to me back in the 70s, I mentioned. I learned the recipe and I forgot all about it. And so 20 years went by. And it's probably around the time I might have met you, Dara, or maybe just a few years before that. I was teaching a herbalism course, and all of a sudden I said, oh my God, there's this plant called fenugreek, and I forgot all about it. So I had all my notes that I had written in one of my notebooks when I was studying herbalism with this woman who I was apprenticing with, and I pulled out the recipe. Actually, one of these days, I'm going to actually make a whole fenugreek recipe book just out of this seed, because now what I'm going to do is share something really exciting. So instead of just making fluff, you can now start making a whole bunch of other things with this. So what's really neat is you could take this, and if you add enough banana or whatever to it, you can now put in a dehydrator, and now you can make pancakes. So it becomes fenugreek fluff pancake. Here's the other one. So instead of adding water to it, we could add tea. So let's say instead of water, I'm going to add some mint tea to it along with carob. So instead of just water, I'm getting the flavor of the mint coming in along with the fenugreek, of course. The other one you can do is you can make a milk. So you can make a hemp milk or sunflower seed milk or an almond milk, and you add your milk to the fluff. So now you're adding a creamy texture to something, not just water. You're adding something more of a, or cashew milk, whatever kind you like. So then you can take that and you make it fairly thick. So maybe a little bit thicker than this. And then you can pour it to make your pancake, and you dehydrate it in a dehydrator. And the fenugreek actually ends up like a binder, because the fenugreek seeds end up, because the lecithin is very much like eggs, the way eggs help to hold things together. So it works the same way. So this recipe came out about 20 years ago, or reemerged for me. And then some of my students who were living here with us, who were apprenticing with us, they got all excited about it. And they said, well, why can't we make ice cream with this? So then we started making ice cream with this. So you just take it and freeze it take it out and blend it again. So gradually it just gets, because we don't have an ice cream maker here, but gradually what you do is you just take it, freeze it, not fully frozen, take it out again, blend it again, put it back in the freezer. So as it's freezing, it has that, those bubbles are still in that form. Then we also started making gravies with it. So instead of making it go towards the fruit category, we said, why don't we make it into a vegetable category, be it with carrots or with other kind of vegetables that you would like, that you would make like a raw food gravy to pour on different things. We also started making it into soups, so become like more like a creamy soup, and you can put all your other things in there that have that creaminess to it. So that's how this recipe has kept evolving over the decades of we've been making this.
Shantree, would it be possible to use it instead of chia seeds and flax seeds? And also,
Yes.
Pat Godinez says fenugreek makes the sweat smell like caramel. I remember.
Okay. I've never heard caramel. I'm sure. I think it depends on a person's perception of how they perceive it. Some people just like, I'm so used to it, I just love it. Other people's like, oh my God, you smells really strong. You're starting to smell like a person from India, right? Because it has that, but it really comes through your skin very quickly. So, which is a good sign, because you actually want to get nutrients going to the extremities. You want it to be going to your fingertips. You want it to go to your toes. You want it to be going to that extremity part of your body, and that is why the fenugreek works so well, is because it has that aromatic part. Now, the difference with chia and flax, or any of those other seeds that have that demulcent sliminess to them, is they're not aromatic. So that's what's different about this. The other ones are just plain, right? Flax doesn't have smell to it. Chia, there's no smell to it. But because these have an aroma to it, you're bringing in aromatherapy to the seed. And that's why, that's why I said pumpkin seeds, sunflower seeds, almonds, cashews, they have no aroma, which means they don't work as therapeutically. They don't get to support your circulation. They don't support your blood. They don't support your respiratory system or up here, because that's why I said it's hard to say, is it a food or is it a medicine? Because the fenugreek has this aromatic part, and there's a lot of aromatic chemical constituents in the seed. So I'm keeping this very brief because I know we don't have a few hours to work with this, but if we had a few hours, I'd get into explaining all the nutritional facts. Now, one of the things I did this past, about a month ago, actually, I wrote a book on, it's called Sprouts and Microgreens, and I put a whole chapter in there with the fenugreek fluff, fenugreek seeds, and all the nutritional benefits of it. So anyways, that's available online. So a person can just get that as an online e-manual. So you're not just learning about sprouting and microgreens, but you're actually getting this huge, I think it's like 7 or 8 pages of information about the great benefits of fenugreek seeds, plus the recipes in there. So anyways, I think
Shantree, before you go on, Ionic Solar says option A, please listen, option A, the fluff contains 2 to 4 teaspoons of fenugreek versus option B. If you blend, for example, 4 tablespoons each day of 4 days old fenugreek sprouts. Option B, you consume more fenugreek, but does the fluff / option A is more beneficial health-wise? I'm trying to understand the benefits health-wise of the fluff being that there is so little fenugreek content. Thank you.
Right. So the way I learned the recipe was making fluff with this. So in other words, the seeds were taken and they were cooked. They were made like a tea, like a decoction. So you just take them and boil them and you cook it down. I didn't actually share how this recipe was discovered by accident by the chef. The place I was studying in, it was in Massachusetts, and I was apprenticing there, and the chef made tea for himself. He forgot about the tea. He came back to the kitchen. He had a meeting, came back, and he had a cold. So he made some fenugreek seed tea, left it, came back. The tea was cold. For some reason, he threw it in the blender, blended it up, and it's like, hey, wait a minute. This is all fluffy here. So then he shared that with my teacher, and she said, well, what would happen if we actually blended it again? And what happened is it got even more fluffy. So what happens is in here, there is saponins and there are the lecithin, but they're locked in here. You can't really get it out unless you boil it away, which means you destroy some of the aromatic parts, you destroy the enzymes, you destroy some of the great benefits, as most of us know who are exploring more of a raw food approach to this. So back in the late 70s, when I learned this recipe, I wasn't into raw back then. I got into raw late 70s, early 80s. So this here, it has those nutrients or those chemicals in there, but it's hard to get them out. So if you try making a fluff with this, you won't be very successful. If you just put it in plain water and blend it. Not much. I mean, it will get fluffy, but not as much. But the other thing that happens is you took this and you blend this, it's not going to be fluffy, because now it's leaving that stage of a sprout and becoming more like a microgreen. So those nutrients are becoming spread out, or they're not as concentrated. So that's why I said you have to really make it within those 24 to 48 hours. So back to your question, the question you're asking is how much of those saponins or lecithin are you going to get into your body? I'm going to say you're going to get quite a bit. But the beautiful thing is you're getting it, but it's an enjoyable drink. You're not just, because if you tried making a tea with this and eating it, it doesn't taste that fantastic. If you try eating this, some people, like I said, it's an acquired taste. So you have this, chances are nobody would be able to really enjoy and eat a whole jar of this in one sitting or in one day. Maybe two people could spread out, and if you have nice big large salads. So hopefully that answers the question of what's happening there. So you don't have to get a lot. It's not like you have to have a lot of the saponins and lecithin. You don't have huge doses of it. But what happens is this way, I can have this. I can maybe have 2 to 3 glasses of this a day. And Lorena and I will enjoy this now for the rest of the afternoon and drink this. But once again, all I'm getting, remember I said, this gives me 3 blenderfuls. So if this gives me 3 blenderfuls, the amount of fenugreek seeds that are in here is probably only 1.5 teaspoons of seeds for the whole blender, right? Is that clear?
Yes. So Shantree, we would love to have you back, but what I would prefer to do actually is to have you on the Climate Healers Food Show, because that's a longer show where you can go into great details about that. But I just wanted to make sure that those people who are watching here today, that they, Pat Godinez says, I used to just make sprouts from fenugreek back in New York City in 1985 in the summer. My sweat smelled yummy, I was told.
Yeah, because
well, it was in New York City. New York City has quite a lot of stench to it, so I used to live there.
Yeah. The other thing that's in here is it's very much like aloe vera. It has a sliminess. And I know it's not a pleasant word that a lot of people think, like, well, I don't want to be drinking something slimy. But it's very similar to aloe vera. So when you think of the benefits of aloe vera, using for skin or using for externally, right? Well, the fenugreek seeds also has this emulsing quality. So that's why it comes through the skin, not just for circulation, but actually improves our the vitality, the health of our skin. That we so I've been talking a lot about it helps digestion, helps the internal part, helps the endocrine system, helps circulation, all those things. The part I didn't bring in is what starts to happen more around the outside of our skin. So I was in some ways saying the scent might be negative to some people, but it sounds like there's a few people it's very pleasant, be it caramel-like or be it pleasant. So it all depends on perception of how you see that. So I've been loving fenugreek seeds now for about 20 years, quite consistently, quite regularly, especially here for those 6 or 7, 8 months of the winter time, just to help my respiratory system and my immune system to stay healthy.
Wonderful. So we need to finish up because we're already over the time. But unless there are any last minute questions from the audience, can you please leave us with one piece of information as to what you think is the most important thing to know about fenugreek? For example, could it use it according to the doshas? Can we help it to balance out the doshas?
Yes. So this is the beautiful thing with this, because it helps that circulation, which means it helps our pitta. It helps our fire come back up because it has that combustion. It has that aromatic heating quality. And I believe that most people, their fire is too low. And the older you get, a lot of times people's fire becomes depleted. And I'm going to go on a limb here and say that anyone who has a health problem, chances are their fire has become too low. The further in the colder climate you live, the more that is likely. So one is how old you are, but the other one is if you're in a colder part of the world. And so fenugreek really helps that fire combustion occur. And that's why it's number one thing is really digestion. It helps our digestion. It's an aromatic spice, no different than caraway seeds or cumin seeds or mustard seeds or cayenne, all those spices that we have. There are seeds, the seeds that have that heating quality to it. Fenugreek has that, but it's gentler, but also has a bitter component, which means it helps to detoxify, helps to clear out the old. So it helps to help the bowels move. So in other words, it helps really well in getting rid of excess sluggish, which is kapha. It helps to reduce the kapha and help us stay healthy. So maybe that's the way I'm going to end with that. But I would love to show you something before we go as well, because I did this for the microgreen class, which was on Wednesday evening. And I still have this. Unfortunately, Wednesday evening didn't look as good or as nice as it does now. So if I could show this to you, here's what it looks like. So even though there's no fenugreek seeds in this one, but you can see all the different, so there's kamut grass in the middle, there's some red radish, there's some bok choy, there's some, so you can see I have 3 different kinds of seeds here, but isn't that beautiful? So this is our centerpiece in the middle of our kitchen table. So, and that, I think that's the other thing, if I can say one more thing just about fenugreek seeds, is just how diverse they are, from a seed to a microgreen to eating them as greens and enjoying them. And anyways, it's been a pleasure sharing all this with you folks, and hopefully you'll come and join us for the climate show as well. Thanks for inviting me.
Maybe you could come back another time and also show how to grow microgreens. That is something I'm going to be doing a lot here on the show, to teach people how to grow microgreens, and also the difference between a sprout and a microgreen, because there seems to be a lot of confusion and people interchange them a lot. So thank you, Shantree. As usual, it's always a pleasure with you. You are such a bastion of information and knowledge, and you live it, and that's what's most important. And I'm glad to introduce you to a wider audience, because I think your work is so important, as is the Living Center itself. And I look forward very much to having you on the Climate Healers Food Show. And thank you, everyone, for tuning in today to our Elegantly Raw show. And I look forward very much to seeing you next week, when our special guest will be Donna Perrone from New York City, the Gravity Center. She has a huge amount of knowledge in detoxification. She's a colon therapist and a detox specialist, and she'll be talking to us about detoxing, but the sensible way, the elegant way to detox. And that's next week. And the week after, we're going to be going on a trip to the Amazon, to the Ecuadorian side of the Amazon. We're going to be visiting an intentional raw community there for the Amazon Food Festival. This is their 2nd annual Amazon Food Festival from this raw vegan community group there. And we will be going there. Hopefully the internet holds out, because this is in the Amazon. So that's in 2 weeks' time after Donna. Shantree, it's always a pleasure. Thank you so much. Yeah. And we look forward to everyone expanding their health and healing with this fenugreek. It's so important. Tom is asking for more segments, please. He says, great job, and please bring him back. Yes, we will. And Pat says sprouting creates carbs. And Ionic Solar said, thank you, great show and channel. Thank you. This is why we exist, just to give you this information, because too many people are suffering needlessly. And there are people like Shantree and Lorena and people like myself and all over who have so much information to share. So help us share it by spreading this information as well, and get this knowledge to as many people as possible, because there are too many people suffering, including, and next time we should address mental illness and depression as well. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And lethargy and exhaustion, chronic, because that's, again, right up the fenugreek line, because they are just really well known for that. So thank you, Shantree. Thank you to the Living Center. Thank you, everyone, today for tuning in. Until next week, until we bring Donna to teach you about how to detox correctly, how to detox in a very sensible manner, and all the different ways we can detox. Sending you lots of healing, and remember to be bold, be brave, and remember to enjoy the abundance of the earth and give back in kind. Thank you, Shantree.
Yeah. Welcome.
Bye, everyone.